So you're thinking of making a move to Chicago, but you're not sure which of its 77 neighborhoods is for you? Well, you have come to the right place, my friends. Today we're going to talk about Lincoln Park, all the ins and outs, how to get in and out, the commute, the history, what you do when you're there, where is Lincoln Park, the affordability, cost of living, and of course, real estate. And if you're new to living in Chicago, do not forget, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ding the notification bell so you can become the first to know about the current market here in Chicago. I'm Andrew Coppins with Exit Strategy Realty, and I get calls, emails, texts, DMs every single day from people just like you looking to make a move to Chicago, and I love it. So if your move is coming in a couple weeks, a month, even a year from now, please make sure you reach out to me. All of the information on how you can do so is in the description of this video. And like I said, we're talking about Lincoln Park, one of the most iconic neighborhoods in all of Chicago. So why don't we just dive right on in? So where do we start? Of course, where the heck is Lincoln Park? First off, we're going to orientate ourselves. It is about 2 to 4 miles just north of downtown Chicago, the Loop. Depending on where you live, from east to west or north to south, it's about 2 to 4 miles. So you are pretty close to downtown, but just far enough north where you don't feel all of the craziness and the hustle and bustle. The population is about 70,000 or so in this neighborhood, according to the 2020 census. And what are the borders? Where is Lincoln Park in terms of its borders? On the north side, you're going to see Diversity Avenue. On the south side, North Avenue. The east and west orientations are about bodies of water. On the east side will be wonderful Lake Michigan, and on the west side, you have got the north branch of the Chicago River just west of the Kennedy Expressway, or I-90 as other people might know it. So now that we know the borders of Lincoln Park, what neighborhoods are around Lincoln Park? To its north, you've got Lakeview. To its west, you have Bucktown, and to the south, Old Town, Gold Coast, the near north side neighborhood that I talked about before. So now that we have orientated ourselves as to where Lincoln Park is in Chicago, we have to talk about commuting. Getting to and from the airports, if you're going to travel out of the city. What about the iconic venues within the city and the culture and all of that? Well, we're going to start with the Loop. And why? Well, chances are you're likely to take in dinner and a show. You're likely to work there at some point in time if you work in an office. So getting to the Loop from Lincoln Park via public transportation, and by the way, each of these options and where we're going to go, I'm going to tell you both your public transportation and the options in a car, because you might not have a car and you might not need a car here in the city of Chicago. With that being said, getting to the Loop via public transportation, 15 to 25 minutes most days. And via the car, also 15 to 25 minutes. So you might say, well, which one do I take? Well, it really depends. Is your work going to give you a stipend? Are you having to pay for parking when you get downtown? Those are the considerations, and of course, time of day is also going to matter. But beyond the Loop, what other things are we going to want to do? You want to know how to get to various big venues like Wrigley Field, Guaranteed Rate Field on the south side, home of the Chicago White Sox, and of course the United Center. And I'm going to tell you that because I'm a sports fan. So if you want to get to these places, we're going to start with Wrigley Field. It's just north of Lincoln Park, 10 to 15 minutes at your worst on the red line, or 10 to 15 minutes via your car at the worst. So again, consider your options. If you're actually going to a game, the red line is vastly easier to deal with, but otherwise you might want to consider your car as well. Now, if you're going to Guaranteed Rate, that is on the south side. It is likely to be a 30 to 45 minute trip on the red line for you. Or you take your car, it could be 20 to 35 minutes. Again, this is really just about your lifestyle. Are you going to want to tailgate or not? Do you want to pay for parking or not? So all of those things come into play. The other place that you're going to want to check out for sports, the home of the Blackhawks, the home of the Bulls, concerts, all that sort of stuff, is the United Center. And this one, via public transportation from Lincoln Park, is a hassle. It'll take you about 45 minutes, whereas via the car, 20 to 25 minutes. So I get it, not everybody's going to be a sports fan, so you've got to take in some culture, or you're going to entertain people who are here from out of town, which means becoming a tourist in your own city. I'm going to point you to the museum campus, home of the planetarium, the Shed Aquarium, and the Field Museum. So chances are you're likely to go there, especially if your family is visiting or your brother or sister and they've got kids. This is where you're going to want to take them. Via public transportation, it's about 30 to 40 minutes. Via the car, 20 minutes. Easy peasy to get there, but parking can be a hassle. Other big iconic places, Sears Tower, the Hancock Building. You're gonna go there with people from out of town. So the Sears Tower, aka the Willis Tower, it's gonna take you about 15 minutes on the Brown line. That is your best option if you can get on it. And hint, if you live in Lincoln Park, you can. Or you can take the car, 15 to 25 minutes, and pay for parking. Now the Hancock Tower is actually closer, but harder to get to via public transportation. And that's because you've got a longer walk once you get off at the Red Line Division stop. A much longer walk to get there. But if you're taking the car, only 10 to 15 minutes. All right, beyond all of that, you're going to want to know if I want to get out of Chicago, and I wouldn't blame you, especially in the middle of winter. We're going to talk about O'Hare on the north side and Midway on the south side. O'Hare for public transportation is going to be an hour and 5 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. And your car, it can take you 25 to 45 minutes. Midway, public transportation is an hour to an hour and 21 minutes. Your car, 30 to 55 minutes. Now, the caveat with all of this is, of course, it is really expensive to park a vehicle. So, pro tip, if you have a friend who has a car or somebody who can drive your vehicle and you've got that option available, take it every day, all day. It will save you money and time. And with that, we know how to get around the city and travel and all of that wonderful goodness, but you still want to know more. How about we start with the history of Lincoln Park? And one of the interesting things is everybody thinks of the affluence and the single family homes and all that sort of stuff that is Lincoln Park today. But from the Great Depression to the 1950s, Lincoln Park was actually one of the poorest parts of this city, believe it or not. The people of this neighborhood actually banded together in the early 1950s and worked to repair just the absolute disrepair that had been going on ever since the Great Depression in the neighborhood, and it took them decades to get to where they are today as a neighborhood. But originally, this wasn't even its own neighborhood. In fact, it was part of Lakeview Township all the way up to and through and past the annexation into the city in 1889. And also, Lincoln Park was the home of the very first Ferris wheel in Chicago all the way up to 1903. And today, the Ferris wheel, it exists at Navy Pier. Hint, if you live here, don't do it. It is an absolute utter tourist trap. But beyond that, this is also one of the most iconic places in Chicago's mob history. And if you know anything about mob history, Chicago is infamous for it. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre occurred right on the edge of Lincoln Park and Old Town, all that disputed area. But believe it or not, you can actually get a little bit of the history of the buildings and where it took place by going to Chicago Pizza and Oven Grinder, and you get a unique pizza experience. You'll be at the spot that was the alleged lookout spot for that St. Valentine's Day Massacre. The building that housed that St. Valentine's Day Massacre has been bulldozed twice, 3 times by this point in time, and it doesn't have any of the original history to it, sadly enough. Also, you're going to want to know this is home to DePaul University and the Lincoln Park Zoo. And we're going to talk about the zoo in a little bit. But beyond the history, beyond what I could tell you about all the things real estate, let's go to a neutral party. I'm going to bring in niche.com and we're going to give you the report card from niche.com, which brings in over 200 data points. It also has user reviews, so people that visit here, live here, or have lived here. And I think it's important for other people to speak, not just me. Now, Niche.com gives Lincoln Park a grade of A, and its reviews are just over 4 stars, with 74 of the 82 reviews at 4 stars or better. And it ranks 13th in the neighborhood category from Niche.com. Personally, I give it one of my top 5 neighborhoods of 2023. And if you want to know more in-depth reasons as to why, well, you can go to the video right over here. You know what other people are saying about the area? They love it. But why do they love it so much? It's because there's a lot to do in this neighborhood. And I'll give you a hint. Lincoln Park has a ton of parks in it, including a 1,200-acre Lincoln Park, housing the Lincoln Park Zoo as well. One of the only free city zoos in the entire country. It's absolutely fantastic to check out. This is also a great place when summer hits, if it ever hits. No, I'm just kidding. Summer has been known to hit quite early and often as of late. But summer, check out North Ave Beach, check out the J. Parker rooftop or various other outdoor patios. Outdoors is killer in Lincoln Park. But if you're not into beaches and bars, you might be into the music scene. Kingston Mines, one of the most iconic parts of the Chicago music scene, is in Lincoln Park. 2 stages, 1 cover, all blues all the time, absolutely fantastic. Of course, you've got the Chicago History Museum. You also have all the shopping and all the food you could possibly ever want. You're going to want to check out the North and Clyborn area. There's an Apple store there, as well as tons and tons of shopping options. Armitage Avenue, and the food, whether you like it fancy or tavern style or anything in between, you've got all sorts of options. So many that I'm not even going to name them. And that's the draw of Lincoln Park. Whatever you can think of, whatever you are into, it likely exists within the borders of that neighborhood. All right, so what are you going to pay to live in a neighborhood that has everything that you could possibly need, want, and then some, right? What are you going to pay? Well, as always, I'm going to give you the median price, what it's like to look at the condos, the single family homes, and the multi-family homes, and of course, what the neighboring comparisons are. So let's dive right in with the median overall price of just over $626,000. If you're going to buy a condo, it's going to cost you $540,000 on the median. The median single family home is $1.73 million, and your multifamily home is $1.2 million. So clearly this is an expensive place to live in. However, you have so much at your fingertips, like I said. And just how expensive is it? Well, let's compare it to its neighbors. Lakeview to the north, the median sales price is $440,000, and the near north neighborhood that's just south, that includes Old Town and the Gold Coast, is $425,000 at its median. Meanwhile, its western neighbor, Bucktown, its median price is $697,500. Almost on par, if not more expensive. But I'm going to explain. See, Bucktown is a little bit more expensive because it's largely single family homes, or if it's condos, it's those 3 flat type of condo buildings, in which case you're going to get less saturation and less people, thus driving the price up. Now, those depressed prices in both Lakeview and the near north neighborhoods are largely because they have much more of a condo presence and high-rise buildings that don't totally exist, but do exist a little bit in Lincoln Park, thus driving the prices median-wise down. So you have to consider that. In fact, if I were to look at the single-family home prices in near north and Lakeview, you might be surprised at just how close they are in comparison to living in Lincoln Park. But there's more to the puzzle than just the price of housing. We got to talk about cost of living here in Lincoln Park. The pricing of housing is just one piece of the puzzle. How about your totality, the cost of living? Well, all of the information, as always, is from Area Vibes, and I'll put the link in the description of this video. Now, housing is expensive here in Lincoln Park, no doubt about it. 140% of the national average, with Chicago's average score from area vibes being at 117, with dead average nationally being 100. So Chicago is a little more expensive than the national average, but not that crazy. However, Lincoln Park's score is 240. Now, some of the numbers overall can be inflated, namely because of taxes. Look, here's the rub. Illinois has some of the highest property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes anywhere in the country. In fact, the sales tax is 23% higher than the national average, and the income tax here in Illinois is 101% of the national average. Now, the good news, though, on the Lincoln Park side of things is that it is on par average-wise with Chicago for things like food, things like transportation, utilities, services, gas, all that sort of stuff. They are dead on the average. So really, it is the housing that elevates your cost of living. So you need to take that into consideration. Now, you might be saying, but Andrew, I haven't seen what real estate actually exists and what does a median home look like? Well, we're about to take a look. And here is the median overall price point home. Again, for $540,000, the condo that you might be able to buy in Lincoln Park. For those of you looking for that single family home in the city at $1.72 million, here's what it gets you. And if you're looking for somebody else to pay part or all of your mortgage, that multifamily option at $1.2 million looks like this. Now, that, folks, is Lincoln Park in a nutshell. Like I said, if you're interested in knowing more, hit that link in the description. I would be happy to get with you whichever way you prefer to communicate. And until next time, folks, I'm Andrew Coppins with Exit Strategy Realty, and here's to exploring even more of the Windy City.